had worshipped my older sister, SophieLane, ever since I was little. Growing up, my greatest happiness was serving her drinks, carrying her bags, and picking up her meals. After Sophie was accepted into Central University, I immediately got my SAT and skipped a grade so I could get into the same university. On the day Sophie moved into the university, she entered the dorm room with 8 bodyguards. Our roommates call her the One Queen. Meanwhile, I was making her bed. Only Viola Lynch gave me a knowing look and teased me. You aren't her roommate at all, are you? You're clearly her personal maid. I merely smiled without answering. That day, Sophie casually tossed me the new Chanel purse she had bought. This color suits. You use it. When I took the purse with a grin, Viola happened to walk past the doorway. The weekend, Sophie went abroad on vacation. Viola and I were the only ones left in the dorm. Eve, do you know what everyone in class calls you behind your back? Sophie's Pat. The next day, my boyfriend, Aaron Sanders, the campus heartthrob, asked me to meet him at the track field. Viola stood beside him with red eyes. When he saw me, he frowned deeply. Eve, can you stop being so pathetic? You became someone's pet over a single purse. Viola's family might be poor, but even she has more dignity than you. Viola tugged at his sleeve and whispered, Aaron, don't say that about her. I'm not worth it. I looked at them, holding hands, and suddenly chuckled. Wait, for real? Had no one noticed that Sophie and I shared the same last name? I adjusted the strap of my Chanel purse and chuckled. Oh, Viola, you've been dying to say that for a while, haven't you? What? You want this purse too? Too bad you can't afford it. Viola's face turned red, her lips trembling as she took a step back. Aaron frowned deeply and moved in front of her. Eve, I never thought you were like this. When did you become so arrogant and cruel? Viola's family is struggling and you deliberately flaunted your wealth to humiliate her. Do you have no conscience? Looked at me with open disgust. I went, still arrogant and cruel. I suddenly remembered Aaron stopping me outside the library a year ago. His youthful smile had been as bright as the summer sun. Eve, you're the most cheerful girl I've ever met. You're like the sunshine when you smile. The whole campus lights up. His ears had turned bright red. Will you be my girlfriend? I want to keep seeing you smile. So this was it. Once he stopped loving me, my cheerfulness became obnoxious and the sunshine became blinding. My chest tightened achingly. Viola pulled at Aaron's sleeve. Aaron, don't blame Eve. This is my fault. I only wanted you to talk her out of being Sophie's. She trailed off and bit her lip, but she wouldn't listen. And then she humiliated me with that purse. The commotion drew the attention of nearby students. Some recognized the Chanel purse on my shoulder. Others recognized Viola. Isn't that Sophie's lucky? Since when does she carry Chanel? When the maid gets a handout, she starts treating herself as a proper lady too. Her owner's abroad, so she's just staying with no one watching after her. Now, their insults came one after another. Aaron listened without saying a word. In my defense, Viola hid her face behind his arm, her shoulders trembling, but I caught her smirking. I almost laughed. It was only a Chanel purse. I had a walk-in closet full of purses like it. I had never mentioned my family, so everyone had assumed I was my sister's. Lucky. I took a deep breath. I'll carry whatever purse I want. I don't think that's any of your business, right? Viola instantly raised her voice, her eyes welling up with tears. Eve, what gives you the right to talk to me like that? Yes, I'm poor, but you can't afford luxury goods either. So you became someone else's pet. What gives you the right to show off in front of me? Everyone turned to stare while I laughed. Out of anger, I stepped forward and looked down at her. Viola, what makes you think I can't afford it? Aaron let out a scornful laugh. Eve, who are you trying to fool? Other people might not know how you live, but I do. You wear the same few outfits over and over, and you always order the cheapest food in the cafeteria. Last month, you spent forever calculating how to save $5 on your phone bill. At least Viola doesn't pretend to be someone she isn't. No matter what designer purses you have, they are all imitations anyway. Aren't you ashamed to use someone else's handout to humiliate Viola? Pain rose in my chest. Last month was Aaron's birthday. I saw a post about a limited edition game console. Some guy's girlfriend had bought him, and Aaron sent it to me with an envious emoji. I wanted to earn enough money myself to give him A present I could be proud of. I took a job at a cafe and tutored high school students, saving enough, but when he opened the present, he barely glanced at it before rushing off with his roommates. Maybe he had already forgotten all about it. I took a deep breath and forced the pain down. Are you done? Whether I can afford it is my business. What does it have to do with any of you? Move. I turned around and started walking away. I had taken only 2 steps when Erin called after me. Eve, stop right there. Iola meant well when she asked me to talk some sense into you. Not only did you refuse to listen, but now you're giving us an attitude. He grabbed my arm, apologized to Viola right now, then give that purse back. Give it back. It belonged to my family. Who was I supposed to return it to? I said nothing and kept walking. Erin shouted after me, Eve, take another step and we're done. I paused for a moment. Then I took another step. Without looking back at the dorm, I pulled out a wash basin from under my bed. My sister would be back the day after tomorrow, so I needed to change her sheets. I stripped the bed, soaked the sheets in the basin, added detergent, then crouched on the floor and began scrubbing. The door creaked open. Viola walked in carrying a bundle of dark bed sheets. When she saw me washing the sheets on the floor, she smirked. She came over, loosened her hands, and dropped the bundle into my basin. Foam splashed across my face. A large dark red stain covered the pale fabric lying wet and sticky against my sister's sheets. I raised my head. What are you doing? Viola folded her arms. I'm on my period and my stomach hurts. Too much to wash them. We're already doing laundry, so wash mine too. Isn't washing things for other people what you do best? We're all roommates. Why play favorites? I stood up and wiped my soapy hands on my apron. I pulled out the soaking bundle and shoved it back into her arms. Wash your own bed sheets. I crouched back and went back to scrubbing. The wet fabric soaked through Viola's clothes and she froze. Eve, what is that supposed to mean? Can't you show a little concern when my stomach hurts? I ignored her. Our roommate spoke up for me. Viola, having your period doesn't mean your arms and legs stopped working. How hard is it to wash a bedsheet? Eve isn't your maid exactly. Why should she wash it for you? Viola's face went pale. She bit her lip, threw the sheets into the basin and ran out, slamming the door hard. About 20 minutes later, my phone vibrated with several messages from an unknown number. Eve, why do you have to bully her like this? Would it kill you to wash one bedsheet for her? She's crying alone on the track field now. Are you really fine with that? I'm very disappointed that you wouldn't even help her with something so small. I stared at the text and laughed. Then I typed a reply. If you care so much, come wash her bloody sheets yourself. I don't care if you lick them clean. And since we're already broken up, you have no right to even say something like you're disappointed in me. I sent the message, then blocked the number. The next morning, my phone woke me with more than a dozen messages. I opened a link with the headline, Shocking News. The truth about Central University's wealthy Aries and her maid. Is the girl always beside Sophie an imposter? I was wide awake. The post had gone up on the university's message board at 3 that morning. Does everyone remember Eve? The girl who follows Sophie everywhere and even made her bed on the first day of the semester. You thought she was just Sophie's roommate. How naive. Her father is actually a servant for the Lane family whose job is to serve them. Oh, she really is the Lane family's pet. The post listed every one of my supposed offenses. This woman only wants to stick to rich people. She looks down on students from ordinary families like us. I'm ashamed to even attend the same university as someone like her. At the bottom was an anonymous comment from a so-called insider. I'm her roommate. She never talks to any of us because she thinks we're poor. She has Sophie to protect her. So why would she bother with people like us? Would have recognized Viola's tone anywhere. The post had already reached the top of the forum. The comments seemed endless. No wonder she's so good at acting like a servant. She must have practiced it since childhood. People like her are so disgusted. I heard she's dating Aaron Sanders. I have no idea what he ever saw in her. Someone tagged Aaron's account. When I opened it, I found his reply. We broke up. Thanks. She was the one chasing me. Hundreds of people had liked his replies. Chasing him. He had forgotten how desperately he had begged me to go out with him. I locked my phone and sat on the bed. Before I could gather my thoughts, the university counselor called. Eve, please come to my office. Miss Carter pushed a printout of the message board post toward me. The whole university is talking about this, trying to one-up other students and bullying someone on financial aid. Have made the department look terrible. How about this? Apologize to Viola and we can put this behind us. I repeated the word apologize. She threw a blood-stained bedsheet into my wash basin, spread lies on the message board that my father worked for the Lane family and turned the entire university against me. And you want me to apologize to her? Miss Carter's expression darkened. Watch your attitude. Are you trying to make this even worse? I stood up straight. Miss Carter, you don't have to worry about this. When my parents return to Central City, you can speak to them yourself. Her frown deepened. Then bring them here. I want to see what kind of parents could spoil a child this badly. My father's name is Torben Lane. Would you like me to call him for you? I said, with a smile. Her pen slipped from her hand and hit the desk. He searched the directory and stopped at one name. The anger drained from her face. You're the daughter of Lane Group, chairman of the board. Why didn't you say so earlier? I did not answer. I simply opened the door and left. Before I reached the dorm, two figures approached from the far end of the tree-lined path. Viola had linked her arm through Aaron and pressed close against him. Her swollen eyes made it look as though she had just been crying. Aaron leaned toward her, his expression gentle. Then they saw me. Viola paused and clung to him even tighter, while Aaron's expression turned cold. Viola spoke first. Eve, I didn't mean to do. I honestly didn't know the post would turn into such a big problem. I only complained once in our dorm group chat. I don't know who took a screenshot and posted it. Please don't be angry with me. I'm sorry. All right. I suddenly laughed. Are you done putting on this act? You've had your eyes on Aaron for a long time, haven't you? When he was my boyfriend, all you could do was play the weak and helpless damsel in front of him. Aaron pulled her behind him. Eve, I ignored him and kept smiling at Viola. Let me make this clear. Today, you went to all this trouble to steal a piece of trash like Aaron. You shouldn't have bothered. You can have a loser like him for free. Everything went silent for a moment. Aaron raised his hand and struck me hard across the left cheek. Staggered 2 steps sideways, my knee hitting the stairs. My cheek was on fire. My ears hung. Aaron stood over me on the steps, his chest heaving. Eve, don't think I won't do it again. I've been too easy on you. Apologize to Viola now or I'll make you do it. I raised my head and looked at him, then at Viola behind him. He pretended to be frightened, but she looked delighted. There was no avoiding it now. I pulled out my phone. I blinked until my eyes watered and let my voice shake. Dad, my boyfriend hit me. He said he would force me to apologize to. Laughter spread through the crowd. Is your servant father coming along to apologize with you? Then at that moment, the thundering sound of a helicopter surrounded the university. It was not long until a helicopter descended. The roar of the helicopter blades whipped the autumn air into a whirlwind, tearing through the quiet canopy of the camphor trees lining the track field. Leaves spiraled down like green rain, and the deafening thrum of twin engines flattened the murmurs of the gathered crowd into terrified silence. Students scrambled backward, shielding their eyes from the blinding dust and flying debris. The black Augusta Westland AW-139, emblazoned with the silver crest of the Lane Group, settled heavily onto the center of the green grass. Before the rotors had even ground to a halt, the side doors slid open with a heavy metallic latch. 6 men in tailored charcoal suits stepped out first, their expressions carved from granite, swiftly forming a protective perimeter. Behind them stepped a man in his late 50s, his silvering hair combed back neatly, wearing a bespoke pinstripe suit that radiated absolute power. Torben Lane. And right behind him, stepping out in a crisp ivory trench coat, her heels clicking against the landing pad with lethal precision, was my older sister, SophieLane. She hadn't been abroad at all. She had simply been at the corporate headquarters in the financial district, overseeing an international merger. Aaron stood frozen on the steps above me. His hand, which had struck my face only moments before, was still hovering in the air, twitching slightly. Beside him, Viola had turned as pale as a corpse, her fingers digging so tightly into Aaron's sleeve that her knuckles turned white. Eve. Sophie didn't wait for the bodyguards. She strode past them, her eyes sweeping over the crowd until they landed on me. When she saw me sitting on the cold concrete steps, clutching my left cheek, where a bright red, swollen handprint was already blooming against my pale skin, her steps faltered. For a fraction of a second, her regal composure cracked, replaced by a raw, terrifying fury. Torben Lane's eyes narrowed into slits. The air around the billionaire chairman turned arctic. Who did that? Sophie's voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the lingering whine of the helicopter engines like a razor blade. Nobody spoke. The students who had been sneering and throwing insults just moments ago instinctively backed away, leaving Aaron and Viola standing, completely isolated at the top of the stairs. Torben walked over, his heavy leather shoes coming to a stop right beside me. Didn't look at the crowd. He knelt down. The man whose name was etched onto the library buildings, the science wings, and half the city's skyline, and gently helped me up. Dad, I whispered softly, my voice raspy from the stinging pain on my face. Dad. That single word hit the surrounding crowd like a megaton bomb. Aaron's jaw dropped. He staggered back a step, his eyes wide with utter disbelief, staring at Torben Lane, then at Sophie and finally at me. Dad. Aaron stammered, his voice squeaking pathetically. Eve, what? Did you just call him? Viola's knees buckled. She would have fallen to the ground right there if she hadn't been clinging to Aaron's arm. No, that's impossible. The forum post said. Her father is a servant. Her father works for the Lane family. Sophie stepped up the stairs. She didn't look at Viola. Her gaze was locked entirely on Aaron. She reached out, grabbed Aaron by the collar of his varsity jacket, and dragged him down 2 steps with a force that betrayed her slender frame. You put your hands on my sister? Sophie's voice was dangerously low, trembling with a dark, suffocating rage. Sophie. Mississippi Lane. Aaron's arrogance vanished, replaced by a terrified, sweat-drenched panic. He raised his hands defensively. It's a misunderstanding. I didn't know. She didn't say who she was. She was acting like your maid. She was washing your sheets, carrying your bags. Slap. The sound was sharp and deafening. Sophie didn't use an open palm. She struck him with the back of her hand, her diamond ring catching the sunlight as it split Aaron's lip. Aaron stumbled sideways, hitting the iron railing with a heavy groan, blood instantly pooling at the corner of his mouth. She carried my bags because she's my little sister and she loves me. Sophie sneered, stepping closer, her heels pressing against his chest as he slumped against the railing. She washed my sheets because when we were kids I nearly died of pneumonia. And she swore she would take care of me forever. She wears simple clothes because she despises shallow, ostentatious trash like you. And you thought she was my servant. Sophie turned her head slightly and spat out 2 words, disgusting insect. Torben Lane didn't waste his breath on Aaron. He pulled a silk handkerchief from his breast pocket, gently wiped the blood trickling from my lip, and turned to his head of security. Call President Vance of Central University, Torben said, his tone deadpan, utterly devoid of warmth. Tell him I am withdrawing the $50 million research grant for the engineering department. Effective immediately. Yes, Chairman. And call the legal department, Torben continued, taking my hand in his. I want a full audit of every business associated with the Sanders family. If Sanders Logistics holds a single subcontract with the Lane Group, terminate it before the sun sets today. Aaron's face drained of what little color it had left. Mr. Lane, please. No, my father's company. We rely entirely on the Lane Group's port contracts. If you cancel them, we'll go bankrupt. Aaron scrambled down the steps, falling onto his hands and knees in front of my father, completely abandoning his pride. Eve, please. Aaron begged, his voice cracking into desperate sobs. He tried to reach out and grab the hem of my jeans. I was blind. I was manipulated by Viola. She told me you were bullying her. She showed me fake screenshots. I only hit you because I thought you were being cruel. You know how much I loved you, Eve. Remember the summer outside the library? Remember the game console you bought me? I looked down at him. A month ago, seeing him on his knees would have broken my heart. I would have made excuses for him, telling myself he was just hot-tempered, that he still cared about me deep down. Now, looking at his bloody lip, his tear-streaked face, and the desperate, pathetic greed in his eyes, I felt nothing. Not anger. Not sorrow. Just a profound, suffocating disgust. You didn't care about the game console, Aaron, I said softly, my voice echoing clearly over the quiet field. You didn't even open the box. You just wanted to show off to your roommates that you had a girl working 2 jobs to buy you toys. No. I loved it. I still have it. Aaron wept, banging his forehead against the paved path. Eve, give me another chance. I'll break up with Viola right now. I'll never see her again. Behind him, Viola stood frozen, her eyes wide with shock as she heard the man, who had just promised to protect her, throw her under the bus without a second thought. Aaron, Viola whimpered, her voice trembling. How could you say that? You said you hated Eve. You said she was annoying and tacky. You said I was 10 times better than her. Shut up, you wretched leech. Aaron screamed, turning his head to glare at Viola with pure, unadulterated hatred. It was all you. You posted those lies on the message board. You threw your filthy sheets into her wash basin. You ruined my life. The crowd of students, who had spent the last 2 days mocking me, were now staring at the spectacle with utter contempt. The whispers began again, but this time they were directed entirely at the two figures groveling on the ground. So Viola really made all that up? Unbelievable. She called the chairman's daughter a servant. And Aaron, what a pathetic gold digger. The moment he realized Eve was the real heiress, he threw Viola away like trash. He actually hit a girl. What a scumbag. Miss Carter, the university counselor who had demanded my apology hours earlier, came running down the tree-lined path, her face pale and her forehead dripping with cold sweat. Chairman Lane, Mississippi Lane. Miss Carter stammered, clutching her chest as she stopped in front of my father. I am so sorry. There was a massive failure in our administration. We were misled by false reports on the student forum. I came to personally clear Miss Eve Lane's name. Torben Lane didn't even look at her. He simply adjusted my coat over my shoulders and spoke to his secretary. Inform the Board of Regents that Miss Carter is unfit for her position. I expect her resignation on my desk by tomorrow morning. If she is still employed by this university by noon, I will pull all Lane Group funding from the campus. Miss Carter's eyes went wide. She stumbled back, her hand flying to her mouth, completely speechless. Eve, Sophie said gently, putting her arm around my waist and pulling me toward the helicopter. Let's go home. Mom has been waiting for you. I took a step forward, then paused. I turned around and looked at Viola, who was standing trembling in the shadow of the staircase, her eyes filled with terror, embarrassment, and jealousy. I walked over to her. Viola shrank back, covering her face with her arms as if expecting me to slap her. Instead, I reached out, unzipped the Chanel purse hanging from my shoulder, and pulled out the small, handwritten card Sophie had tucked inside it when she gave it to me. I held the purse out to Viola. You wanted this so badly, didn't you? I asked quietly. You ruined your own dignity, posted lies, and threw your bloody sheets in my basin, all because you couldn't handle the fact that I had something you couldn't afford. Viola stared at the purse, her throat working silently, unable to utter a single word. I pulled my hand back and let the multi-$1,000 bag drop onto the dusty gravel at her feet. Keep it, I said, my voice cold and steady. It's just leather. But no matter how many designer bags you carry, Viola, you'll always be cheap. The retaliation of the Lane Group was swift, precise, and absolute. By 4 p.m. that same afternoon, the university's official forum had been completely scrubbed of the defamatory posts. In their place stood an official, high-priority announcement pinned directly by the university president's office. Official notice, severe disciplinary action and public apology, following a thorough investigation by the University Disciplinary Committee and the Campus Cybersecurity Division, it has been confirmed that student Viola Lynch intentionally fabricated rumors, engaged in malicious defamation, and launched a targeted harassment campaign against student Eve Lane. Furthermore, student Aaron Sanders engaged in physical assault and verbal abuse on campus grounds. Decisions. 1. Viola Lynch is officially expelled from Central University with immediate effect. Her academic records will reflect severe moral turpitude and defamation charges. 2. Aaron Sanders is indefinitely suspended pending formal criminal investigation for physical assault. His athletic honors and scholarships have been permanently revoked. 3. Central University extends its deepest apologies to Mississippi Eve Lane and the Lane family for the administrative oversights. The comment section beneath the notice exploded. Holy crap. Eve Lane is literally the youngest daughter of the Lane Group. She skipped a grade just to be with her sister? That's so sweet. Viola is insane. She threw her period sheets into a billionaire's wash basin? Is she out of her mind? Aaron Sanders is the biggest clown in history. He traded an actual heiress who worked part-time jobs just to buy him gifts for a manipulative gold digger who used him. I heard Aaron's father's company just went under 3 hours ago. All their logistics contracts were canceled. While the internet burned, I was sitting in the sunlit greenhouse of the Lane family estate, sipping hot Earl Grey tea. Sophie sat across from me, peeling an apple with a small silver knife, her expression much softer than it had been on the campus track field. You're still too soft, Eve, Sophie murmured, handing me a slice of apple. If I were you, I would have had Aaron's hands broken the moment he raised them. Against you. I took the apple slice and smiled faintly. Hitting him back wouldn't change anything, Sophie. Seeing his world crumble around him because of his own greed is much more satisfying. Sophie let out a soft sigh, her eyes filling with a mixture of pride and heartache. She reached across the table and lightly touched the ice pack I was holding against my left cheek. Why didn't you tell anyone who you were? Sophie asked quietly. You didn't have to live in that cramped dorm. You didn't have to work at that coffee shop just to buy a present for that worthless scoundrel. I looked down at the amber tea swirling in my porcelain cup. Growing up, everyone looked at me as Lane's daughter or SophieLane's little sister. I said softly. When I met Aaron, he didn't know who I was. When he smiled at me outside the library, I thought he liked me, just Eve, the girl who smiled brightly. I wanted to see if I could build something real without the Lane name. I paused, letting out a small, bitter laugh. I guess I was naive. He didn't love Eve, the cheerful girl. He just liked the idea of having someone who worshipped him and catered to his ego. The moment Viola played the helpless victim, his fragility couldn't handle it. Sophie's eyes darkened, but she remained silent, reaching over to squeeze my hand tightly. It's okay, Sophie, I smiled, looking up at her. I'm not sad anymore. I'm just glad I woke up before it was too late. 2 days later, the rain returned to Central City. A heavy autumn drizzle washed over the grand iron gates of the Lane family estate. I was sitting in the library on the second floor, reading a textbook, when the butler, Uncle Thomas, knocked gently on the open door. Second, miss. Uncle Thomas bowed respectfully. There are 2 people standing at the main gate. They've been out there in the rain for 3 hours. The security guards tried to move them, but they refused to leave. I raised my head from the book. Who is it? Mr. Aaron Sanders and his father, Mr. Richard Sanders. I remained quiet for a moment, then closed my textbook. I'll go take a look. Down at the main gates, the rain was coming down in sheets. An old, battered sedan was parked on the side of the private road. Standing right in front of the massive wrought iron gates were 2 drenched figures. Richard Sanders, a middle-aged man who used to boast about his logistics empire at local business galas, looked as if he had aged 20 years in 48 hours. His suit was soaked through, and his hair was plastered to his forehead. Beside him, Aaron looked completely hollowed out. His face was pale, his lip was still swollen and black from Sophie's ring, and his eyes were bloodshot. When they saw the black umbrella approaching from the long driveway, Richard Sanders immediately grabbed his son by the neck and forced him down onto his knees in the mud. Eve. Miss Eve. Richard shouted frantically through the bars of the gate, his voice hoarse and desperate. Please, give us 5 minutes. I beg you. I stopped 5 feet away from the gate, holding my umbrella steady, looking at them through the cold rain. Mr. Sanders, I said calmly. It's raining heavily. You should go home. Miss Eve, please, have mercy. Richard sobbed, slapping his own son across the back of the head. This foolish boy, he didn't know. He was blinded by that wicked girl Viola. He's been weeping at home for 2 days, beating himself up. Our company, the bank, froze our assets this morning. If the Lane Group doesn't reinstate our shipping contracts, we will be completely ruined. We'll lose our house, our cars, everything. Richard turned and grabbed Aaron by the collar, shaking him violently. Speak. You idiot. Beg her. Tell her you were wrong. Aaron raised his head. Water streamed down his face, mixing with tears. He looked at me through the iron bars, at my clean, dry clothes, my calm, untouchable composure, and the realization of what he had thrown away seemed to crush his soul. Eve. Aaron choked out, his voice cracking violently. I was wrong. I was so stupid. I swear to God, I never loved Viola. She tricked me. She told me you were arrogant. She told me you were treating her like trash. I only wanted to protect the weak. I didn't mean to hurt you. Protect the weak? I repeated softly, a faint, mocking smile touching my lips. Aaron, you didn't want to protect the weak. You just wanted to feel like a hero. When I was cheerful and independent, you felt small. When Viola cried and played helpless, she fed your pathetic male ego. No, that's not true. Aaron wept, reaching his hand through the iron bars, trying desperately to touch the hem of my dress. I love you, Eve. I've loved you since the day I saw you outside the library. Please, remember how happy we were. Remember the coffee shop. Remember the game console. The game console? I pulled my phone out of my coat pocket, unlocked it, and pulled up a saved photo. It was a picture of the limited edition console I had bought him, sitting in the dustbin behind his dormitory building, where his roommate had thrown it out after Aaron told them it was just a cheap gift from a girl who chased him. I turned the screen toward him. Aaron's eyes went wide. The breath left his lungs as if he had been struck in the chest with a sledgehammer. You told your friends I was chasing you. I said, my voice as cold as the autumn rain. You told the whole university I was a desperate servant trying to cling to rich people. You stood by while Viola slandered my father, and then you raised your hand and struck me. I lowered the phone and looked him straight in the eyes. Aaron, the Eve who would work 2 jobs to buy you a gift died the moment your hand hit my face. Eve, please, Richard Sanders screamed, banging his fists against the iron gate. Give us a path to live. He's just a child. He made a mistake. He's 21 years old, Mr. Sanders, I replied smoothly. He is an adult, and adults have to pay for their choices. I turned my back on them and began walking back toward the warm, brightly lit mansion. Behind me, the sound of Richard Sanders beating his son echoed through the rain, accompanied by Aaron's agonized, desperate cries calling my name over and over again. I didn't turn back. Not once. A month later, the campus of Central University had returned to its usual rhythm, though the atmosphere around the business department had permanently shifted. Nobody called me Sophie's pet anymore. Nobody dared to throw sneers or whispered insults in my direction. When I entered the lecture hall, students politely made room for me, but I didn't surround myself with bodyguards, nor did I flaunt my family's wealth. I still wore comfortable sweaters, sat in the second row, and took detailed notes during lectures. The only difference was that I no longer hid who I was. In the dorm, Viola's bed had been cleared out completely. A new student, a quiet, hard-working girl from the art department, had moved in. One afternoon, as I was walking out of the library, I saw a familiar figure, sweeping the autumn leaves near the university gates. It was Viola. She was wearing a faded, oversized reflective vest, holding a heavy bamboo broom. Because of her expulsion and the legal charges filed by the Lane Group's attorney, no university in the province would accept her. Her family, unable to pay the legal settlement fees, had forced her to take a low-paying sanitation job with the city to pay off her debts. Her hands, which used to be smooth and manicured, were red and raw from the cold wind. As I walked past the gate, our eyes met for a fraction of a second. Viola froze. Her grip on the broom tightened, her body trembling with shame, embarrassment, and jealousy. She looked at my pristine coat, my calm, bright eyes, and instantly lowered her head, hiding her face behind her messy hair as she swept faster, trying to make herself invisible. I didn't stop. I didn't mock her. I simply walked past her, stepping out into the bright afternoon sunlight. Standing near the tree-lined path was Sophie, leaning against a sleek black Bentley, holding 2 cups of hot hazelnut latte. Done with class, little maid? Sophie teased, a rare, brilliant smile lighting up her face as she handed me a cup. I took the latte, the warmth seeping into my fingers, and laughed aloud. Yes, Your Highness, I replied smoothly, taking a sip. Where are we going now? Sophie linked her arm through mine, her eyes bright with affection. Home, Eve. We're going home. I looked up at the clear blue sky above Central City. The sun was warm, the wind was gentle, and for the first time in a very long time, I felt the sunshine not just on my face, but deep within my heart. My cheerfulness wasn't obnoxious. My light wasn't blinding. I was Eve Lane, and I was finally living my own life.